This is the Can Crushers Wrestling Podcast.
The following contest is scheduled for one fall.
Let's go nuts! It's Jimmy Nuts! Drive out with a car!
With your hosts, Mark Martinez.
Remember, just because you're trash doesn't mean you can't do great things.
And the English Professor.
It's called a garbage can, not a garbage cannot.
Hey, this is former WWE superstar Duke, the Dumpster Drosy, and you are listening to the Can Crushers Podcast.
And welcome back to another Can Crusher Spotlight Chat. I'm super excited. This guy is one of the guys that is why I'm in wrestling. He's an announcer. Welcome, by the way, Chad.
Yes, well, thanks, Mark. Thank you.
This is, I reached out to the world's most dangerous announcer, Michael Cappetta, and he's like, guys, I'd love to do Can Crushers. So, boom, open the spot, boom, Michael Cappetta's coming on the show.
I'm looking forward to this. I'm curious, after reading his book, after obviously he's one of the most recognizable voices in professional wrestling.
He was on a video game too.
Bar none, and he was on a video game. I'm interested to see what he has to say about various subjects of today and wrestlers from yesteryear and everything.
One of the things, of course, after I told the English professor about this as well, and we're all on, three of us are on the same page. Is he a fan? Sitting at ringside with Steamboat and Flair. I mean, come on, that's our most iconic matches, right? I need to get that question in there.
Yeah, that's easily recognized as the greatest 3-match series
in the world. Yeah,
ever. You can say the Magnum T8 and Nikita Koloff best of 7, but that was kind of a different flavor. But yeah, the Steamboat Flair matches. I don't know how you couldn't be a fan.
Yeah.
But being somebody that was there for all of them, somebody that announced, somebody that's been around those wrestlers, did he think it was going to be something special? Did it live up to expectations?
Well, we know it did.
Did it flop?
Yeah, well, we know it did. We're going to get into them. We have a ton of questions in front of us that we're not going to leak any more questions. You'll find out when we talk to Mr. Cappetta. I'm excited. But what do we have to do first? We have to talk about collar and elbow. He's not getting the leads yet. I'm throwing him up, and he's not catching them yet. Guys, collar and elbow, we love their hoodies, their tees, their hats, everything they have to offer. It's comfortable. It's great wear. I think a new line, because they've been doing it, maybe a spring line is going to be coming up. I'm not saying it is or it's not, so don't throw me under the bus, but they have. Every season they've kind of thrown something else around. So be on the look for some new merch coming up.
Hey, if it's as good as the last stuff and is comfortable, definitely up for it. Definitely looking forward to it.
And you can get 10% off by using our promo code, which is, Chad,
Can Crushers with capital C's.
There you go. You get 10% off your entire order. But, all right, let's send it over to Al, and let's get to Mr. Cappetta. I'm excited.
Wrestling. A love and a passion we all share. I've started a wrestling brand. The wrestling brand. A brand founded on the aspects of wrestling. Two entities working together to create a product that connect emotionally for people everywhere. Collar and Elbow is the brand. Passion and love for wrestling is the drive. I am Al Snow, and this is Collar and Elbow, the wrestling brand.
And welcome back to Can Crushers Chat. I'm super excited to have our guest come on the show. He's iconic. He's been around for us, and he is the world's most dangerous announcer. He's got that name from your boy, Jim Cornette. It's Gary Michael Cappetta. Mr. Cappetta, welcome to Can Crushers.
Hey, fellas, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Chad, this guy's also an author. We just got done reading the book. Well, you did. I read it a while ago. Of Bodyslams, Memoirs of Wrestling Pitchman, and unbelievable stories.
Yeah,
You guys must be slow readers. This book has been out a while.
I've had it forever. It's just I haven't shared it. I'm not going to lie. I just have not shared it with any of these idiots that I call my friends on my podcast.
Okay, well, yeah, I don't want anyone to share my book. Make them go buy it.
See?
Yeah, see, he can't make money. Come on. That's how that thing works. But I, Mr. Cappetta, have gotten back into my love of wrestling through Mark, who, we're lifelong friends, and now we're traveling, to WrestleCade. We're going to the Crockett Cup, everything like that. So that's my excuse for not being into the books. His, I don't know.
I just look at the pictures.
Well, you have a lot of time. You have a lot of travel time there, A lot of time to read that book.
Right. Go ahead. You go first.
We'll just kind of dive into questions. In reading the book, there was so many things that I found fascinating.
Okay.
Because of kayfabe back then, learning about this stuff even now, it's like, oh my God, this stuff really went on. Talk a little bit, the first thing that I have down. Talk to me about what you knew about the athletic commission payoffs for the wrestling and that.
Well, there were payoffs on all different levels. For instance, when I worked for 11 years with what's now WWE, and for 8 of those years I did their TV, and it was done in the state of Pennsylvania. And by law, I should not have been allowed to announce in the state of Pennsylvania. In order to get a license, you had to be a resident of Pennsylvania, and I wasn't. Same thing with all the Spectrum shows that I did in Philadelphia. So in order for that to happen, they would have to pay off the commission. For those that go on YouTube or the WWE Network and watch those old Spectrum shows, you'll notice that there's always me and another announcer. And the other announcer was the state-appointed announcer. Part of their agreement was they didn't want their announcers to lose work. So they brought them in, and I would give them a few matches to announce, and that's how we would proceed. So that's just like a very benign example of payoffs. I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to with payoffs, but if you want to dig down into something specific that was in the book, let me know.
Oh, I was in general. I find it fascinating that the different federations, different places, to let things, not necessarily illegal things, but things where they could shut down a show. People would have to give them a little bit of cash, or in some cases I've heard let friends wrestle on the card or give them a job or stuff. I just find that with the government and commissions, I find it fascinating that that's how this ran.
So you're saying, did WWF, AWA, ROH, he's been all over, WCW, grease somebody's palms to make something happen?
Not asking for specific people.
Right.
But I'm saying, that kind of just information, things that you knew about that, like what cost, the most in the payoffs. What was a general thing that was a given when you had to do something like that?
Right. Well, that's not something that you read in the book. I mean, I'm not sure where that's coming from. I would have that's not the kind of thing that a promoter's going to run around and talk about.
Okay.
So it's, I only know of my situation, and I don't have any idea what kind of money was transferred in order to get me to announce. It's why would they go around and talk about things that they're doing that's not legal?
Right.
So I wouldn't know that. All I knew was that there was hanky-panky in order to allow me to announce where I announced. And I didn't really know. I didn't really care. It was really none of my business.
Okay, fair enough. And I just read your part in your book, and I've read in other books where wrestlers in that have talked about wrestlers that became bookers, that became owners, talked about the other side of it. But that it's just fascinating all around, no matter what it was, to me.
Mr.
Yeah, back in the early days, for instance, in the state of New Jersey, everybody had to be licensed. Not only the wrestlers, but the referees, the timekeeper, the announcer, all the way down to the person that sold tickets. The state had to license you, and all that meant was that you had to pay a yearly, really minimal fee, and you were regulated technically by the state. But I never had any interactions with the state. I had interactions with the wrestling promoters, and they dealt with the state.
Okay.
Yeah, quick story real quick is I am licensed in Kentucky, so when I go down to OVW, I can do some of the camera work, some of the editing, stuff like that. I mean, I'm never getting in the ring, trust me. I would get killed by anybody. But I even have to have a license in Kentucky to do something, so that's why I have my Kentucky license. Mr. Cappetta, you just posted something. You're going to get these bouncing back and forth on social media, and I loved it because I just watched it probably 2 weeks ago about Captain Lou Albano fighting a fan in Pennsylvania. That was awesome. Not that it was awesome, it was scary at the same point because he was swinging a chair around. How was that whole atmosphere that night? I mean, it seems crazy.
Yeah, there've been that was kind of minor compared to other situations that I would find myself in. Once in Atlantic City, New Jersey, there was a total riot where knives came out, fans at ringside, and there was a stampede toward the doors. You know, all the wrestling fans trying to get away from these guys that were pulling knives out. So, I mean, there are different levels. There was a night in, I think it was Altoona, Pennsylvania, where a fan tried to get at Jim Cornette, and this is in the book.
Big surprise there.
To hop the railing, and Jim smacked him in the head with his racket, and the guy bled all over the place. And there, there's a lot of people don't realize that when an arena is rocking and the people are screaming and let's say they're not happy about what's going on, especially in the days when people believe, that was never a time of danger. Whenever there's danger coming, there's the fans witness something, and as they're digesting it, there's a quiet that goes on in the arena. There's a silence before the eruption, and that's when it gets really serious. Within the last couple of months, I got to tell you, there was something that I had to chuckle about. I don't remember where it was, but it was at a WWE show. Sami Zayn was at ringside, and he was managing. And I'm going to use a word that's not politically correct, but you can bleep it if you want. And a fan got up and ran to the railing and called him a fag. And Sami Zayn's political correctness clicked in. And he's trying to lecture the guy about how that's not an appropriate word to use. And I had to chuckle. It's like Sami Zayn as a manager or any heel manager, your job is to enrage the audience. Your job is to wind the audience up. So you're going to get, if you're successful, a response from that audience member's gut. And that's what he got. And Sami Zayn should have been saying to himself, wow, I was successful. What does a 2020 wrestler want from an audience member? Do you want the audience member to run up to the rail and all enraged and say, and shout, "You did a bad thing"?
Right?
Be afraid. So anyway, yeah, I mean, you would. There are different levels of danger. When I announced down at the Bahamas stadiums in the Bahamas, it was so dangerous there that to try to prevent injury to the performers, the entire ring and the walkway leading to the ring was covered in netting because there were just so many things that were hurled at you that, first off, they wouldn't be able to keep the ring clean, but it's very dangerous to be in the middle of that. So there are different levels of danger. That was just a fun clip that I put on my Facebook and Twitter pages. You noticed there were no railings.
No.
No, they didn't exist at the time. You had the front row, and then you had the ring. And probably there were some lawsuits that caused promotions to start using some kind of barrier.
Yeah, in Pennsylvania, it's definitely a law now that you should be using railings. Some of the you have a good relationship with Jim Cornette, right?
I do, yes.
Yeah. Some of the outlaw mud shows that he likes to call them still do no railings, but if the commissioner would ever come, I mean, that's one of the first things they can get fined on. And we've been to some. We've been to some that still don't do it, but the commissioner can't make it to every spot, so they're kind of hoping and praying that he doesn't pop up someday. But yeah, that was my main point there with the railings. I really wanted to talk about that.
The commissioner should make it at every point. If you're licensed and the commissioner's getting paid to do what he's doing, why isn't he showing up? He should be showing up.
Correct.
Something from your book, Mr. Cappetta, that I took was that you spoke about the Grand Wizard and Gordon Solie to an admirable degree, what you felt about them and thought about them. Talk a little bit about their influence on your career.
That's interesting that no one has ever brought those two names up to me in one question. And, as you're asking the question, here's how they bookend my career. When I began, I was not allowed in the wrestler's locker room. I was an outsider. I was given the information as to who to announce, but I was never allowed inside. I had to dress elsewhere. And the Grand Wizard was the first insider to bring me in, to have the faith in me to begin to speak frankly about the business. I would go down and visit him. He had a home in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So he was like a consultant at the beginning of my career. Towards the end of my WCW days, when I was having differences with management, Gordon Solie would talk me down from my anger about what was going on with the management at WCW. So both of those gentlemen, the Grand Wizard of Wrestling, Ernie Roth, and Gordon Solie, they were great friends during both my introduction to wrestling and at my height of exposure in WCW. And that's what will tie them together.
That's awesome. It's funny to hear, from somebody how, okay, this guy started, somebody that you may not expect was your first, if you want to say it, friend in the business that kind of let you in, to somebody that is, not really arguably, but is considered the best announcer ever in pro wrestling.
Yeah, yes.
it's the stories. I'm sure of things that they've done. You could go on, but I got a question. I'm going to tag along with that. You made a comment about differences with management in WCW. Would that have anything to do with Chapter 18? Cappetta can't be trusted.
I honestly, you have to get a little more specific.
In your book, there, Chapter 18, The Final Bell, Cappetta can't be trusted, and it has stories about Eric Bischoff. It seemed like I don't want to say kind of snowballing you or keeping you under a watch, maybe.
Oh, that was kind of outrageous to me. I think I remember what that reference is. Probably my final announce assignments with WCW. There were different things that happened, and management just expected the worst of me. For instance, the last time that I knew I was doing a WCW Saturday Night TV show from center stage, I wanted to thank the audience because before we would go on the air, most of my, especially my creative work, happened when the cameras were not rolling and when I was interacting with the crowd. So what we wanted was a raging crowd when we went on the air. So I would have to get the fans up and screaming and multiple times in the course of a night. And at center stage, there was a core of fans that were always there. So we got to know each other from a distance, but I worked more or less in front of the same crowd. And when I was younger, and it was a territory time, and there were wrestlers coming in and out and challenging Bruno Sammartino, all of a sudden they would appear, and they would have their run with Sammartino, and then after he beat them, and they made their run around the big arenas, they would disappear, and no one would ever say anything about them. And I would wonder, like, what happened to you? So I didn't want that to be the case with me. And, of course, it was a different era. It was 20 years later. So as I began to thank the folks, word must have gotten back to management, and one by one they came out to watch me, to see just to watch me announce, just to kind of like stare me down, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. I got the sense that they thought that I was going to badmouth the promotion on the way out because it was my last time there. And I just said to myself, like, you really don't know me, do you? Like, you think I have absolutely no professionalism. The same thing happened in the last pay-per-view that I did in St. Petersburg, Florida, where the flight that they booked me on was late. So I was late in getting to the production meeting. And, you know, they couldn't think, well, we hope Gary's okay. We hope, you know, we don't know why he's late. Because I had never missed a show in, you know, now it's my 40-year involvement in the business. I've never missed a show. By the time I got to the production meeting, they had assigned my job to someone else. It was like, well, it's his best show, so he's just not going to shine. He's just going to screw us. And it was like, are you kidding me? Like, do you not know me? Like, how many years do we have to work with each other? How many years do you have to have known me? How is it even possible that I could last in this business for so many decades if I was such a diabolical individual? It just amazed me that they just expected that I would be some run-of-the-mill scum.
So
a sarcastic title for that chapter.
So the backstage politics, so to speak, in WCW actually were front and center with you as well, then.
Yeah. I would
To a point, yeah.
Do you think that, like, your issues like you've just described, do you think that was because of the lack of knowledge of the wrestling that the people in charge had at the time?
No, I don't think it's a knowledge thing. I just think that just very poor instincts and very poor or lack of leadership qualities.
I'm going to bounce back to one of our favorite feuds that you were actually part of, Center Stage again. You announced Flair and Steamboat matches all over the place. Did you know it was going to be something special, like one of the first times? Did you become a fan actually and get engulfed in those matches, or did you still do your job, with air quotes? Did you just enjoy the moment?
I absolutely knew that it was something special. When people ask me the most memorable matches that I announced, I always break it into segments. And in that decade, the Ricky Steamboat, Ric Flair matches, Chicago, Nashville, and New Orleans were, they were something special. And it was just an incredible series of matches and run. Yeah, I was really pleased to be a small part of that.
On the same aspect of being a fan now, you'll see I'm the one that jumps back and forth. How much wrestling do you get to watch now? And I'm always the one, I'll stir the pot. What is your favorite right now? Is it NWA, the throwback? Do you love the new age AEW, or are you in the same bucket with WWE?
I get to watch as much as time allows, as much as I can. And there's a lot of good stuff out there. And I try to keep up with WWE and AEW, and I watch NWA every week. There's such they're different products, especially NWA compared to the others. I was keeping up with Ring of Honor for a while, and then there's MLW out there.
Right.
So yeah, I do keep up with it, and there's a favorite. There's no like favorite. You would enjoy each one for different reasons. There are different goals. There are different intents. I mean, all of it is to entertain, but they all go about it in a different way. So sometimes it's not even fair to compare them.
But well said. We kind of say that every week on the show. Well, that's exactly what our sentiments are. I just lost my train of thought. Go ahead, Chad.
Oh. Well, this is something I want to pull on your experience with being in the business and seeing so many things. There's over the years, there's been events within wrestling that have done, I want to say harm to the business, or just, have really dampened the business. Some things I kind of think of are the death of the Von Erichs, Owen Hart's, the Chris Benoit incident, Magnum TA's accident, Bruiser Brody's murder. These kind of things, or any specific thoughts on these exact instances and how you saw it affect wrestling?
Boy, I didn't think you were going there. I thought you were going in a different direction. I thought you were going to be talking about, when you say dampening the business, I thought you were going to be talking about wrestling that doesn't make sense. It's life. It's life and death. It's there's evil in the world, and it's in wrestling as it is in every walk of life. And there are accidents that happen, and that can't be prevented. So, I never looked at all of what you just said in one, with one thought. And just like in life, you bounce back. Every sport, every entertainment form, every walk of life has black eyes, and so you just you have to move on. Some you have more empathy for because they affect people's real lives. But it's no different than than life in general.
All right, well, let's stir the pot and go the way that you were thinking then. How about the one that infuriates us is probably Joey Ryan and his shtick. That's what I think is dampening wrestling on my end. Do you have any thoughts on anything like that dampens your wrestling?
I would say that anything that is illogical about one competitor, or if it's a tag match, 2 against 2, anything that's illogical that happens in the ring does not lend to adding any kind of credibility to the moment. So, give you an example. When a wrestler mounts the top turnbuckle, faces inside the ring, and does a backward flip onto the floor, how stupid is that? Like, would anyone ever do that if they had the intention of beating their opponent? Like, how stupid is that? So anything like that. I mean, there are little bits of there are little bits that can be done, that are entertaining in a match, but that kind of thing that's just, or a group of wrestlers standing in place for 30 seconds to 40 seconds waiting to catch a wrestler who's flying over the top rope. I mean, if your goal is to try to lend some kind of credibility to the fact that it's person versus person or team versus team, and the object is to pin or make your opponent submit, there's no place for that. It just doesn't make any sense.
So you... Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And maybe not every promotion's goal is to bring realism. Well, if that's the case, then I guess that you can have your show. Maybe you shouldn't call it pro wrestling, like call it something else.
I agree. Did you see the clip recently, or within the last week and a half, of the Hawk boy jumping off of the second story at a mall? Did you see that, and did you just go, man, they're killing the sport?
Was this the fellow that was on NWA Power?
Yes.
Yeah, I did see it somehow. I'm not even sure where. I wouldn't put that in the same category. I think that I wouldn't advise this kid to do what he did, but I'm not sure, because I have no idea why he was up there. Like, was there a fight up there? Did he just run up there to jump off? I have no idea, like, how that came to be. But yeah, so anything that's illogical really just sort of rubs me the wrong way.
Something, Mr. Cappetta, that's seems to be a hot topic across everywhere in wrestling is male versus female matches. Going to the extreme of, like, Impact with Tessa Blanchard against guys like Brian Cage, and how do you look at that when you, like, you're talking something that doesn't make a lot of sense, does no good for wrestling? 120-pound woman versus a 300-pound plus guy that, looks like he'll kill you by just looking at you.
Yeah, well, I don't think that is illogical if he wins in 15 seconds.
But I mean, like, her
pulling off
her winning, and her being a world champion.
I just addressed that. I mean, I don't have a problem with a guy against a girl. I mean, they do that in high school now.
Yeah, right.
Scholastic Wrestling. But should the match last more than 15 seconds? You know, it's what they do with that could be the problem.
Okay. One of the things I'm a big gamer as well, and I'd like to go back to talk about, you were part of the Showdown Legends of Wrestling game. You did most of the voiceovers. How fun was that? I mean, that's something that I would love to do. Can you talk about that, just putting that together a little bit?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed doing that. The one problem that they didn't foresee is that my announce style is a big booming style, and those games are put together where I'm announcing, for instance, weight after weight after weight, city after city after city. So Chicago, Illinois, Cincinnati, Ohio, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and someone who booms like I do, your voice, you can't withstand 10 hours of that. You know, I'm just going to get hoarse and I'm going to lose my voice, and that is what happened one day. But I really enjoyed doing it. I was happy to be part of that.
Yeah, caught your voice right off the bat when I got that game, and I'm like, oh my god. Again, jumping around, AWA, I wish was still around. I think if they would have had a better marketing team, they would have had a longer presence. Is that kind of your same thought? Because look at who's come from AWA, some of our greatest stars.
Yeah, once Vern stepped out of the territory, once McMahon stepped into his territory, and he had to compete, I think that was just nothing that Vern was accustomed to. He wasn't used to competing with anyone, while the AWA product, when it was a territory and had no competition, was it was really, really good wrestling. He never had to counter program, and so that's a whole different skill. That's a whole different approach when you were mapping out your promotion, and I think that was that was a major problem that he had. He was just doing something that he wasn't accustomed to doing. It wasn't what he excelled at.
Okay. Jumping back on your book real quick, I see when we were doing some research, and I'm sorry I didn't get to see it yet, and I want to know where I can. You've actually made and directed, starred in Bodyslams and Beyond about the book, your one-man show. Is that anywhere that we can watch it on, like Amazon or anything like that?
No, not currently. I had created that show back in 2002, and then I put it on the shelf for a while. A few years ago, I brought it back out, and I toured most of the country, for one-night stands, and I had a really good time doing it. Drew a lot of very educated fans because it's a 2-hour show, including a 15-minute intermission, and then toward the end, I take questions from the audience. It was just a lot of fun to do, and I'm supposed to. There's a promoter in upstate New York who wants me to bring the show up that way, and I'm still open to invitations to bring the show out. I mean, I've never had the show, for instance, on the West Coast, and I think that would be a fun thing to do.
Something that I wanted to ask you about, somebody specific, was really huge in this area, Pennsylvania, being so close to Pittsburgh, and that. What, good or bad, what are some favorite stories about Bruno Sammartino?
Well, Bruno Sammartino is the reason that I became a wrestling fan. And the first night that I stepped into the ring to announce, he was in the main event against Nikolai Volkov, defending his title. And I was just in awe of him. As the years went on, I got to know him. And so I feel blessed for that to begin with. And he sort of defied what people just accept, that anyone that's your hero could never live up to that billing once you got to know them. He was an individual that superseded, how I looked at him before. Once I got to know him, the personal side of Bruno. He was very. I'll give you an example. Back in the early '90s, 900 telephone services were all the rage, and there was a Bruno Lou hotline, and I was contracted to go into New York and do the voice for that. It's like it was very much like doing the video game, actually. And then I was brought back to do a boxing game, and there was a boxer by the name of Nino Benvenuti. And I had no problem announcing his name or pronouncing his name, but I had a problem announcing his hometown. So I had no idea, and the technicians that were in New York had no idea. So I said, well, let's call Bruno and get him. I mean, he'll tell us how to pronounce that. And when he picked up the phone and I said hello to him, he didn't want to talk about that. He didn't want to talk about wrestling. He wanted to talk about me personally. He wanted to catch up with what was going on with me. When he heard I was working full-time with WCW at the time, he said, really? He said, so you're not teaching school now? Because I was a school teacher by trade. I said, no. He said, well, you be sure that, you watch yourself. You be sure they don't take advantage of you. And then he went on and asked about my family and my family's business. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, this is Bruno Sammartino. This is like an international superstar. And I'm a ring announcer. And he remembers details about my life. He was just an incredible person who really deserved all the accolades that he received.
I hope you got a royalty check from those 900 numbers, because I had a probably $900 bill on my mom's phone because I would call, listen a little bit, hang up, call back, listen a little bit. At one point, I didn't get an allowance, or all my paper route money went to the phone bill because I was addicted to that thing. It was unbelievable.
You probably still should be paying for that.
You're right. I really, thank you. Thank you.
On a little different subject than Bruno, much different subject. In your book, you talked about the blacklisting of wrestlers. What can you kind of tell us about that? I mean, feel free to throw any names out there, but more so, what were some of the things that got wrestlers blacklisted, so to speak?
I would put it under, like, one general category would be not to cooperate with the promoter. Bruno Sammartino talks about that openly in his original autobiography, about how he was blacklisted by Vince McMahon Sr. This was prior to his becoming champion. He was... there were certain things that he wouldn't do. He was just a very ethical kind of guy. So what McMahon did was booked him in Baltimore, didn't tell him he was booked in Baltimore. When he didn't show, McMahon filed a complaint with the Maryland State Athletic Commission, and the commissions were all connected. So one commissioner calls the next commissioner, calls the next commissioner, and Bruno, before you know it, wasn't allowed to wrestle, for instance, in San Francisco. He was wondering why his bookings dried up. And in order for him to make a comeback, he had to go to Canada and start from scratch. He started over again and built his career up again until he became so popular that McMahon had to relent, and the rest is history. And May of 1963, Sammartino became his champion, and was a mainstay for for more than a decade. So that's really not secondhand knowledge. It's Bruno would sit down and and talk about it.
Is there any wrestlers that you can think of, or that got, I know you're saying not cooperating with the promoters, but is there any that got blacklisted for just, I want to say, abhorrent behavior, injuring people, things like that they just weren't good to use because they were dangerous?
I would just say I wouldn't use the word blacklisted for that. I would just say that if a performer's not up to the level that roster, you just don't hire him. I don't consider that to be blacklisting. Blacklisting is where all of the promoters across the country and all the territories band together to dry up the work of to drive someone out of the industry.
Well, Mr. Cappetta, I know you have a lot going on, so we always like to kind of end with you giving a shout out to all your social media. I know you're on Patreon now. You have a lot going on, so tell us what's going on with you, and then give us all your social medias so our fans can start following you and you can get an influx. You have a ton of people on there already, but of course, anything that you do, your Patreon's really awesome.
We've got the Facebook page is really the center of it all, where there's a fan subscription, and folks can pay $1.50 a week and get some of the inside views that I don't share on the free pages. So that's Facebook at my initials, GMC, the number 4, real. GMC for real on Facebook. And then it's Gary Cappetta on Twitter, and those would be the main places to go.
And do you have, are you going out and about? I know you said you'd like to bring it back. Do you have anything scheduled, maybe besides that New York one coming up, that we can bounce around and see you?
I'm taking some time off in the process of transitioning from one state to another state. So I'm just sort of, if I get a call and someone's interested, but I'm not pushing it. And so no, I don't have anything in person that I want to promote right now.
Okay. Well,
if there was, I'll just say this in parting, if there was ever somebody in wrestling outside of the wrestlers themselves that I would want to meet, and especially meet, maybe witness, do their work, sir, it would definitely be you.
that's why I reached out to him, Chad. Come on.
Absolutely, you're absolutely one of a kind. You broke the mold, and I would love to see you at something like the Crockett Cup or WrestleCade or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds like fun. Well, maybe someday we'll get together, crush some cans, and catch up.
Yeah,
would love to.
Yeah. Again, thank you once again for the time today.
I appreciate it, fellas. You take care.
First off, Chad, what an amazing human being. You take wrestling out of the book. He was a gentleman. Nothing but a gentleman. He answered everything. Man, this was awesome. I'm shaking.
Yeah, this was really good. I got the goosebumps. Him talking when we talked about Bruno Sammartino, who was huge to Pennsylvania, huge to our area. Talking about Bruno and how, you'll get some guys that'll be nice to the, fans when they have to be and everything like that. But he said that Bruno was genuinely a really nice guy, and he had morals that, listen to the podcast, I don't want to give it away, a huge story with Bruno and McMahon Sr.
Yeah.
That absolutely
great question
blew
on the
my
blacklist
mind.
thing. Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
You
dug deeper. I've been following Mr. Cappetta's social media pages, and that's where, I saw the Albano swinging, fighting the fan that was swinging a chair around a couple weeks ago, and it was just a couple days ago. He posted it on his, and man, if you don't subscribe to his Patreon to get that extra little bit of news, I think you need to.
Yeah, it's $1.50 a week.
It's a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Anymore. It really is a cup of coffee.
It's a donut. It's a donut a week for big guys like me.
I don't know if I can give up the donut. I can give up
a donut a week.
I can't give up the cup of coffee.
But his just his knowledge, and you kind of want to, and he'll say it at the beginning. He set the tone for the interview, not in a directive way or anything like that. But he's like, guys, he said, I'll tell you what, you can ask this, and this, and I'll give you short answers because I've answered it
a million times.
Or you can hit me out of left field with stuff.
I think we did.
And we did. And I mean, there's a couple of spots where he'll be like, wow, I didn't think you were going there, but good question. Or, hey, I wasn't never had these two names brought up in the same question.
Yeah. This was amazing. This was fun. I enjoyed it 100%. Chad, thanks for coming down today on short notice.
Oh, no problem at all. No problem at all. And, hey, best part is we got an open invitation to crush some cans with him.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Just get a hold of him.
We had a couple beers. He had a drink, he said. No, he was having some apple juice.
He was having some apple juice.
So, not like us. We're having beers.
Yep.
We're already. It's early in the morning, and we're drinking beer, but that's the way it is here on Can Crushers. Guys, again, this was a great interview. If you know anybody that, you want us to reach out to, we're continuing to reach out to everybody, but if there's one person that you're like, hey, I'd like send us an email at cancrushers69@gmail.com. All social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram are at cancrushers69. Hit us up there. We'll be able to reach out to people, show them what we do and everything. It's just, these spotlight shows are they're getting better.
Yeah, it's reliving the past from different perspectives.
Yeah.
You're talking one of the premier announcers.
The announcer.
From him to, won't give away some that we have lined up, but one of the most influential wrestlers in Southern history coming up.
Yep. That's
in
the works. It's in the works. He's got to call me back. His ducks have to be in a line is exactly what he said.
And it's just getting into this just kind of gives it more of the feel than just talking about. We have our spot where we talk about everyday wrestling stuff and weekly stuff and pay-per-view stuff. This kind of is like a throwback.
Yeah, that's what I planned it for.
Exactly. It just bringing up, to the older crowd names and
you're giddy
like
every week. You're giddy every week.
Oh, I'm like a fat kid in a candy store on this one.
Well, you're giving up your donut because you're going to subscribe to his Patreon.
Yep, no problem.
Hey guys, again, thanks for a great week, and just remember, just because you're trash doesn't mean you can't do great things. It's called a garbage can.
Garbage can. Not a garbage can. Sorry, I'm missing everything, people.
We'll get it straight maybe by next week.